No Purpose Without Love is a podcast dedicated to helping you find purpose through the relentless pursuit of God's love. The unfortunate reality is that we are born into a world that does not know God. Since God is synonymous with love, to be without God is to be without love. This podcast aims to bring light to the dark areas of your life so that you gain a deeper connection with love as a person, more affectionately known as Jesus. Jesus spoke often about the kingdom of God, and in the kingdom, love is the why behind everything that exists, including our purpose. I am your host, Dave Guresso, and my hope and prayer is that you will experience the overwhelming love of God so powerfully that you will become love to a world that is still very much without love. God has given me the ability to provide the spark, but He wants to fan into flames the purpose that He has for you, which always leaves a trail of breadcrumbs leading right back to our Father and Creator. Please remember to follow this podcast to continue receiving notifications about new episodes as they're released. Now let's get fired up. Welcome to the No Purpose Without Love podcast. I am your host, Dave Guresso. On this podcast, we learn to lead well, live on purpose, and honor God with our lives. Today, I have with me Mr. David Good, my guest today. And just to give him a really good introduction, he had a software career taken away from him by a car accident and a subsequent illness. And to find new purpose and to give renewed meaning to his life, he founded the non-partisan, not-for-profit International Friend Connection, or the IFC, in 2014. It's a community dedicated to helping people overcome social anxiety through online and in-person events. Today, the IFC has 47 chapters and 35,000 members in cities all over the world through the Meetup Platform. For his work in building such a diverse, inclusive, and supportive community, David was appointed by MeeTup CEO David Siegel. Am I saying that right, David? David Siegel as the founding brand ambassador for MeeTup in 2023. After helping thousands of people beat social anxiety, David Good founded the Friend Magnet, a 6-week program designed to help those with social anxiety overcome their condition by developing psychological resilience, a growth mindset, emotional intelligence, and real-life social skills. Over the past 9 years, his endeavors have been acknowledged with 3 medals from the President of the United States and was named a Point of Light Award winner by the Points of Light Foundation, established by former President George H.W. Bush. David's passion for solving the social isolation and loneliness crisis continues to this day, inspired by a goal of helping connect 1 million people over the next 10 years. That is an amazing goal. Welcome to the show, David. Glad to have you today.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here.
That is quite an extensive line of experiences that you had over the years, and it certainly looks like you've made quite the impact. So it's pretty inspiring just to read that.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to have been able to do the work that I've done and have been able to pivot after having everything taken away to build something and do something I'd never even dreamed that I was capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you get into that? Like, tell us the story, right? And everybody that listens to this knows I always ask my guests the same question. Start off with the story. How did you even get here?
Okay, how did I get here? Well, I kind of start off. So I always knew I was a bit different from everybody. Had different ideas, different ideas, and I never kind of fit in with everybody else socially. So severely bullied. And I related more with computers and technology than I did with people. So that was the track I picked. I remember I started my first business doing websites for local customers at age 16. And my second client, I'm still good friends. He's like the father I never had. I go and see him. He's in assisted living right now. But yeah, he taught me so much about business. We had a business in the 2000s, a little manufacturing company. Taught me so much. That didn't work out, but yeah, as you know, in business, you have to fail so many times before you have a successful company. And I was the other year, I had a setback at International Friend Connection. We had a kind of an incident with a couple people, and I really beat myself up. And he's like, so my buddy, my organizer, Dale, ex-leadership at Intel, taught me something. He said, there's 3 ways to look at it. A win, you can look at everything as a win, a lose, or a learn. And every failure, if you look at it as an opportunity to learn, you take that knowledge and you go forward. So it wasn't really a failure. It's one step forward being successful. And so I in 2003, got in a car accident. I was waiting to turn left. Car rear-ended me, got totaled. I walked away, bit of neck pain, and ever since then, it really hurt to sit and do work at the computer. But the injury wasn't as bad. And so over the years, what I would do, I would get back to work, and I'd work like a Dickens and then get really sick and then have to take several years off. And later, what I realized that was kind of autistic burnout. You kind of work, I was always a brilliant software developer. I could go into flow state for a long time and solve problems other people couldn't solve. But the thing was, I would work so much, I'd get burnt out, be sick, and have to take several years off. So I repeated that pattern, and until I got my diagnosis recently, in the past couple of years, that I met other people, and they're like, "Oh, we do the same thing too. We're the best employee at the company, and then we get burnt out." Anyhow, so I was working off and on over the years in software development, doing e-commerce systems, and then finally I took such a hard job that where I was working 16-hour days at the computer, and that was what totally ruined my neck. And in 2016, it was a year of endless pain, 30 days out of 30 days of the year, migraine. And I've always had chronic migraine my whole life. Some years I've had migraines every day for years, but 2016 was horrible. I remember I always suffered from depression also. And depression I remember it hit rock bottom after a couple of deaths in the family. And this was about 2011. And that was really a catalyst that made me reach out for the right help. And it was kind of serendipitous that I found a brilliant PhD, two PhDs, a psychotherapist, one in doctorate in theology, another doctorate in psychology. And she turned my life around using acceptance and commitment therapy. Got me from a point where I'd been off work for a couple of years, getting back to work as a software developer. And I basically cured the relapse of depression, or the relapse of depression went into remission without any changes in medication. And so that was amazing. But the thing was, what I learned was, so around that time, my best friend, I had like one best friend since like elementary school, and his life started changing. He was getting married, having kids, so he couldn't hang out as much. And I'd a few acquaintances here and there, but not really friends or anything. People I saw once in a while. But I was a pretty lonely guy. All my life, I felt different. I felt extremely lonely my whole life. I could be in a crowded room, feel like the loneliest guy in the world. And so I was doing acceptance and commitment therapy, and it's a very goal-oriented therapy, which is why I think it's one thing that works really well for men, because it's very action and goal-oriented. You don't just sit and you talk and talk and talk to death, because really only action is what changes your situation in life. And so started taking action. I knew I needed to make friends. So I started going to meetups. I remember when I went to the first meetup was a board game meetup. So I loved board games my whole life. And I shook the whole time. I said hi to the organizer, the group, the one that was there, played one game for an hour and left. That's all I could stand being around strangers at that time. Oh, and that was rough. But every week it got easier. And then a few years later, I got the chance to start my own group. And I debated, I don't even know if I was possible. I had the capabilities of running a group, because people stuff just confused the heck out of me. But I remember I did my first event, and it's still the same thing happened. Could barely say hi to anybody, had the shakes the whole time, but I did it. People came and enjoyed, and some talking to people came. And then so they had a good time. They're like, "When are we going to do this again?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, now I got to do another one." Then I started doing them every other week and every week. And then a couple years later, opened up one. So the first group was West Michigan Geeks. A couple years later, opened one called for Introverts and Shy People, because I wanted to help other shy people. And I read a quote that inspired me. It's like, whatever you want in life, you help other people to get, or you give away to others, you'll get that thing too. And then about a year later, after running my groups, that deep-seated feeling of loneliness, I sat back one day and I'm like, feeling that's been there my whole life had gone away, because I'd learned how to, even though I was still quiet, I'd learned kind of how to make a lot of friends. And then so fast forward, COVID kind of took everything away again. We had to retreat online, so we did an occasional online meeting, and we were able to meet in parks in 2020. But then winter came around, And Michigan winters, as you know, are really tough. We're not going to be meeting outside. So I went online. I got opened up a new group, which became International Friend Connection, and got a Zoom account. And my main concern was I was wondering if, because I know with my depression, I knew I would do real bad if I wasn't seeing people every week like I used to. So I thought, heck, I'll see if other people in the same boat will help each other get through this horrible winter where we can't see people. So we started doing meetings every night, and people had come from everywhere, and people came out of the woodwork, and people were just so suffering from the isolation. I don't know what was worse, the disease or the isolation. I'd like to believe that the COVID disease was a lot worse, but the isolation killed so many people. And just these horrible stories of people locked in their apartments in these huge cities,
Cases we're
not
still,
able to see people for weeks.
yeah, in some cases we're still dealing with it, I think, today.
Yeah, and so that was kind of the story of how International Friend Connection got formed. And then I had 6 groups for that, plus my couple local groups that I had in Grand Rapids. But then, so I gave a speech at the Meetup 20th anniversary party. David Siegel and I, the old CEO of Meetup, became friends. I did their podcast, and they liked my story. And so I got an invitation in 22, a couple months after my mom died, worst time of my life, to come to the Meetup 20th anniversary party. It was a private invite only party. And when they found out I was coming, they said, "Oh, you're going to be the only organizer in the whole world to give a speech." And I'm like, "Wow, I've never spoken in front of hundreds of people. Let's do it." So I went from getting the shakes from being around people to being able to give a speech in front of hundreds of people, no problem now.
Amazing.
And
Amazing.
then after that, somebody said, "I believe in your mission. We want to see what you can do. We'll bankroll all your meetup fees." And so that's why I'm able to have 47 chapters, cities all over the world.
That's great, and thank you for sharing, David. It's such an inspiring story, and I love that you viewed it as stair steps too. The
Yeah,
struggles along the way. I've often seen people kind of describe it like dropping blocks and making it into stairs to kind of
yeah.
lift you up. And that's one of the things I love hearing about your story.
It's
Um,
those tiny little steps. And the main lesson I learned is the main thing I tell people, no matter what happens in life, you can always start again. You can always pivot. I thought I would only be dealing with computers the rest of my life. That's what I knew. I'd never be able to deal with people. I'd never learned how to make friends, let alone teach other people how to do it or overcome social anxiety. But now here I'm doing it here I'm now creating a new program after helping thousands of people for free overcome their social anxiety.
David, I can really relate to a lot of the things that you talked about that social anxiety. And years past, it's definitely something I struggled with. What do you think the sort of the main component for you was when you started taking those steps, right? And creating groups and meeting people? Because at first it was just going to them. You weren't
Yeah.
creating anything. So what was that sort of secret sauce, for lack of a better term, that made you go from I can't do this, there's no way, the heart's beating fast, I'm feeling
Yeah.
it all, to more of a I can do this and I'm gonna keep going.
Well, so there's a secret. And the main secret was I had a coach, and it was my therapist that helped me. And she had decades of experience. And so the secret sauce was she wasn't just a therapist, because a lot of people go into therapy and it doesn't work. The secret sauce was she also had leadership and coaching training, as well as a couple PhDs. She had leadership and coaching training. So she was able to work with me to take those steps, and that's what I think that's what was the secret sauce, because millions of people go to therapy and they don't take any action to change their lives, and you got to take that action. And that's the secret of acceptance and commitment therapy. It's what I teach people. It's what I teach. The first part of my class that I teach is how to overcome that social anxiety, and the secrets I teach are 3 tools that help people deal with those fearful emotions, deal with those runaway thoughts, separate themselves from their emotion and their thoughts, and take that tiny step forward so that they can go ahead and uh, and take that. Because the first step is always the biggest. That first step seems like it's like 200 feet high when maybe it might be a foot high, but it's just so big in your mind, and you got to take that first step. And it's your mind and your emotions that's telling you all these things that aren't true, like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this, people are going to make fun of you, people are going to judge you, you don't know what to say. But once we arm people with skills, so the first thing I do is I teach people to get that first win, to go out, because what you have to do, you're never going to be 100% ready. You have to learn how to do things while being uncomfortable. And so that's what these 3 techniques that I teach do. They teach you to be okay with being uncomfortable and doing it anyways, because anybody that has ever done great things has been uncomfortable while doing it, and they learn to do it anyways. It's like the soldier that jumps out of the plane. I mean, that's freaking terrifying, but they do it anyways. They get taught how to do it anyway.
And surprisingly, they get better and they develop a comfort
Yeah.
with it over time.
Yeah, it's a tolerance. It's called exposure response prevention therapy, which is a gold standard for any anxiety. And essentially it boils down into something simple. You be around what you're afraid of a little bit at a time. And so with my social anxiety, therapist later said, you did ERP therapy on yourself without even knowing what it was. Because my first challenge was go to a meetup, go for an hour, play a board game, go home. And then next time I stayed a little bit longer. Next time I stayed a little bit longer. Pretty soon I could say hi to someone. I didn't know what to say because I hadn't learned that yet. But I just got to be the quiet guy and there. And then pretty soon I found that all that bullying I went through in school, all that judgment I went through, when you're an adult, you just got to get around the right people. I had been around the wrong people all my life. I'd been in this fear response my whole life. I didn't have acceptance anywhere. I didn't have a feeling of safety anywhere, not at home, not at school, anywhere. But then I started going to these groups, and the people that ran these groups, it became kind of a kinder place where people were into the same thing, like board games. You could talk about board games and just get along and have a good time. People weren't worried about tearing each other down or who's better than who. They just want to have a good time, play board games.
You mentioned too finding the right people, and I think that's important. How do we find the right people?
Well, so a couple things. I found the board game group, and then I had to create my own place because my area, West Michigan, the meetup scene isn't like super big like it is on the east side of the state where I got groups, or especially New York City where I got a group that meets in person sometimes. So I had to create my own space to find those people. And it is so tough to find people. Used to, in America, we'd have a lot more social clubs. We'd have a lot more community organizations. But now the best way I found to meet people was on the website Meetup. And actually lately, Facebook has kind of been blowing up local groups more too. So I think that may be in response to Meetup having been bought out and a lot of money being investing in Meetup. I think Facebook may have gotten that word, and now they're trying to blow up local groups on that platform. So we'll see what happens with that. But Meetup's kind of the main place now where you go to meet other people, to meet people who want to meet in person. Also volunteering. Not a lot of people talk about like Kiwanis or the Rotary Club or things like that, but that's a great way to network. Actually, I know a lot of wealthy people around, and they're like, you want to meet quality people, you want to meet other people, kind of the people that are doing big stuff. They're all members of these things like the Rotary, like Kiwanis, things like that. So you meet a lot of big people in those organizations.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to service, right? And that's a Zig Ziglar quote. If you help enough people get what they want, eventually they'll help you get what you want.
Yeah, that's true.
It's one of my favorites as well, David. But servant leadership, right? Because I've
Yeah.
heard you talk about leadership. I've heard you talk about service, right? And so it sounds like there's a powerful component to connecting to the right people, or servant leadership, I should say, is the powerful component of bridging that gap. And maybe not everybody takes that approach.
Yeah.
It's an aim at service versus what can
it's the way to go. And I tell you, so I read a series of books that changed my life, and it is the Go-Giver series by Bob Berg. There's the 5th book by John David Mann and his wife about the Go-Giver marriage. And that one's amazing too, to read about relationships. But the Go-Giver changed my whole perspective. I heard Dave Ramsey talk about it, and it just changed my whole perspective about that you can go into business, like serve people and make the world a better place. And that success in business isn't due to this cutthroat mentality that everybody thinks. It's due to collaboration and working with other, and everybody lifts each other up. And so I've been a member of the Go-Giver Success Alliance for a couple of years. And I never thought I'd be friends with a famous author like Bob Berg, but I can call up Bob and have a conversation with him. Real great dude. Inspired me, got me through a rough time after my mom died. I joined that community after my mom died. I mean, we'd lived together all our lives, and I gave up like 20 years of life to look out for my mom, kind of take care of her. I gave up relationships and a lot of career stuff, just so she'd be okay and taken care of. But after she died, I'm like, I need to update my business skills and finally get something going for myself. And so I got into the Go Giver Success Alliance, and that has been literally life changing. The people I met in there, the encouragement I got, and the personal growth I've been able to make over the past couple of years being in there has been phenomenal. And everybody in there saying they've noticed a big change in me too. And that was one of the catalysts of me finally deciding that instead of just doing this free stuff where I'm doing everything for everybody else and giving everything away for free, that I could actually maybe build a business and make some income. And then from the so I'll tell you my main purpose for building the business is because I had all these wonderful friends all over the world. I got a best friend with a special needs son, and this kid, ever since he was born, he can barely walk. He can't swallow. He has to get fed through a tube when he's like 10. He can't communicate very well, but he's good with tablets and things now, they're finding out, and technology. And this kid just suffers so much. And like, I had a friend I made in Iraq, young guy, wife and kids. He needed $300 a month. If I could hire him for $3 a month, that would have changed his life and got him out of a war zone. And so I know all these wonderful people that need help. And it's like, Dave Good can't help these people because I don't have any income coming in other than like what I've been doing and getting from disability and stuff. And the thing was also, I finally found medical treatments that solve that neck problem. They're very painful to get through. It involved me overcoming a needle phobia, but now I'm able to actually get back to work. And so I've been learning those business skills. So I want to make that money. So when a friend is like, has a sick kid, it's like, I'm like, you don't need to worry about those medical bills because Dave Good's going to pick that up for you.
I love it. I'm just going to start calling you the overcomer.
Yeah, I guess so.
Off things you've overcome, like it just a dime a dozen, right? I'm just overcoming this, overcoming that. I don't know if you hear yourself, but it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, it's kind of been. Well, I learned the secrets of doing that and how to get yourself to overcome something. And it's something that anybody can learn.
Absolutely. And courage was the word that came to mind.
Yeah.
So there is a part of it that involves just that courage to step into it, do it afraid, like you said. Jump.
And courage is a skill that can be learned, just like social skills, just like overcoming social anxiety. These are in talking with people and connecting with people. It's all skills that can be learned. And that's what people don't realize. They think you're either born likable and with social skills or you're not, but it's going to be something that you can be learned. And you can kind of reprogram your mind and change your mind. I go over in my class techniques for kind of reprogramming your mind from this scarcity mentality and fear-based mentality to one of you look at the world differently, a world where there's a world of abundance, where there's you don't have to worry about having friends because you have so many friends that you barely know what to do with.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like the struggle is staying connected, right, with everybody, not with someone, but there's so many that you get stuck on. Okay, how do I make sure that I'm touching base with everybody? I want to go back to sort of the service conversation. I also know that you're a person of faith, right?
Yeah.
So talk to us about what role your walk with Jesus Christ has played in all of this.
Well, so I can be kind of frank here. Always struggled when I was real young, didn't struggle with my faith, but as I became older, as I became disabled, kind of that anger came through as other people treated me bad, kind of struggled with a lot of my faith. It was always in the back of my mind. But I just see so many bad things happen. It's like, and the kind of no good answers to it led to me kind of struggling with my faith. And then a few years ago, read a lot of books, some apologetics, and really, so now what I did was one year I reread the New Testament, listened to it on an audiobook, and there's one thing that stood out. And I think for any philosophy to be true, you have to put it to the test. And so the thing that stands out from the New Testament is the story of the Good Samaritan where Jesus talks about, like, guy was about dead in a ditch. All these people who were reportedly good people, well-to-do people, just passed him by. And the guy that was looked down lowest on society, the Samaritan, I mean, they're looked down in society like a lot of people look down on certain people in our society. And so this guy, who was considered the lowest of the low, he took care of this guy. And so Jesus used that to illustrate that really, one of the keys to life is being kind to people. And so they're like, who are you supposed to be kind to people? And Jesus answers, you're supposed to be kind to everybody.
Mhm.
And I think one of the challenges of being a Christian is being kind to people. That one of the things that'll prove that you're Christian is if you can be kind to people that are unkind to you, or people that you may find a little bit disgusting, or people you don't agree with. That's the challenge of life. That's the challenge of Christian, is to be kind. So I put that into practice. If doing good for others and being kind to people, will that result in a better life? And now I'm living the kind of life I always dreamed. Knowing so many wonderful people, it's like, I know so many wonderful people. I don't know how to be close with people anymore, and that's my next challenge. But any philosophy, you have to put it to the test, and if it works, it's real. And that kind of helped restore some of my faith. As for my belief in God, like, I believe more than I don't now. It's interesting. After getting some depression treatments that are working, I'm kind of more of a believer than and full of less doubt than I used to be. But I mean, I still struggle. I'll never be perfect, but I believe in the mission of Jesus Christ, and I believe he was onto something. And the thing was, people think being kind is weakness, but being kind and being nice are two different things. Difference between kind and being nice is having boundaries, looking out for yourself, doing what's best for yourself and others. It's not being a martyr, letting everybody run over you. It's about looking out for yourself and others, and doing, like I said, doing what's best for yourself and others, and having healthy boundaries.
Mhm.
And it's just not being cruel, because one thing I say in my class, the people that are cruel, the people that put others down, call other people cringe, people that are really judgmental, are that way because deep inside they're judging themselves the harshest, and they hate themselves the most. And until you can let go of that sense of judgment, which I teach people how to do that in my class, till you can let go of that hatred of others, that fear you have toward other people, that disgust of other people, you're not going to let go of that self-hatred. And
Yeah.
so you got to let go of that judgment and that fear and that hatred of other people before you can let go of that self-hatred. And if you can do both of those things, you can be virtually unstoppable.
And so that whole story, I'm really, this in itself, this topic could be its own podcast episode. So maybe we
Yeah.
can have you back and talk more about this. But it's compassion, right? That you're talking about. The
Yeah.
whole story of the Good Samaritan, there was a lot of compassion, but you're also talking about self-compassion.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that, well, if we learn to have compassion for others, that we can then learn to have compassion. But I think it can
Yeah.
work the other way, right?
Yeah. That's true.
Self-compassion, then now we're able to extend that unto others, right? And in many ways, that's been my story. The more I learn to receive that compassion for myself, the easier it is for me then to relate
Yeah.
to others.
Yeah, that's very true. I would tell you about a guy I worked with. So I got a buddy, Jason Zhang, real famous investor, worked for the government of China, had businesses all over Asia, and he teaches investment classes. He's a little bit older than me, brilliantly successful. He had a student in his class from Singapore, and he comes to me and he said, "Can you please talk to my student? He has an anxiety problem. Not his anxiety problem needs to be taken care of before we take care of his money problem. He's not going to be able to learn this stuff unless his anxiety calms down." And so I agreed to talk to him for 20 minutes. He saw a lot of my TV interviews, my story. And I'll tell you one thing I told him. I'm like, okay, now the past is the past. He was kind of beating himself up because his life didn't turn out like he did, like mine. I beat myself up for years, and those are lost years. And he said he may have done some things in the past he wasn't proud of. And I'm like, the past is a past. We're not going to beat ourselves up anymore. We're going to forgive ourselves. We're going to be kind to ourselves. You never heard that before. We're going to let go of that shame. And we're going to step into a new future and be different, because just because the past was one way, we can be different in the future. And he'd never heard that and got excited. And that weekend he went to church. and he hadn't left the house much in like 12 years. And so a month later, I thought my buddy, it was a plan. I thought my buddy was putting me on. He just sent me someone to give me an easy win. But my buddy was flabbergasted. He's like, what do you say to this guy? He's all excited. He's going to go to church. And he's like, you got the David Good magic. I just kind of laughed at that. But anyhow, a month later, we get a message from his parents, and they were flabbergasted. They're like, our son now, who he was a guy about 30, after being home for 12 years, who would get nervous when someone would walk by the house, almost have a panic attack. Now he's walking his dog in crowded dog parks. He's going to markets, getting his own food. And that was just, I was just amazed. And then the other week, he sent me a video where he got baptized, and then he read his testimonial in front of a crowd of people. And 6 months before, he couldn't even leave the house. And he's like, guess what? Now you go on a trip to Malaysia. Wow. And I'm like, wow, dude, you're making amazing change. He thanked me so much. And I'm like, well, you're the one that took the action. I just gave you the tool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that. Wow, that is an amazing story. It's just the past. So that the main point was like, leave the past behind you. And it was that one big revelation that really started him down the course.
Well, it's kind of the message of Jesus Christ too, is that past is a past. You can be forgiven. God can forgive you. You can forgive yourself. And doesn't matter what you've done in the past, we can choose a new future. And the goal is not to be perfect going forward. The goal is just to try it first. All you got to do is try it. Starts with trying one tiny step. Yeah. And then you're going to fail. You're going to have setbacks. But you got to remember, every failure is one step closer to the goal. It seems like it's a dip, like you're losing your place, but it's something you learn, and you're one step closer to the goal.
Yeah. It's that fear though too, right? That stops. Yeah. It's like, well, what happens if I take the step? What if this happens? Or what if this doesn't happen, right? But then there's also the reverse question. Who misses out if you don't step into your purpose and what you were literally made to do? Because look at the lives being impacted by the little bit of courage that you took years ago. And now look at this other person who you spoke to for just 20 minutes, the direction that their lives had. And all it was one little micro step of courage.
And I had a guy come to my meetings, older gentleman, and he would come to my virtual meetings. This was probably towards the end of COVID or whatever. When it was getting over. Remember, it was last year. And so he was like in a rehab hospital, older gentleman. He was kind of counting down the days he had left. He was so depressed. He's kind of counting down the days he had left to live. He's like, oh, I'm so much pain. I'm hurting. I'm in a wheelchair. I've been in a wheelchair for years. And so he started coming to the meetings. He heard all the stories I tell, the people I've worked with to overcome their social anxiety and other issues. And so 3 months later, he came in and he's walking down the street and he's like, I'm walking again. Thanks to you. You're a genius. And I'm kind of confused. And I'm like, no, this is all you. You went to physical therapy. And he was like, well, the stories inspired me to try finally. And now I'm looking forward to how much life I got left to live. Not I'm counting down the days till I die. And that was kind of an amazing story. Okay. But again, it was because he got inspired to just take small steps, and he got inspired to fight. I mean, the thing is, in my communities, it's everybody fights, nobody gives up. And if you can't fight right now, we'll carry you until you fight, but we're going to get you fighting eventually. Yeah. And you just can't give up that fight. And the thing is, so one of the things I always had in my corner is my mom. When I would have endless days of depression where I was almost bedridden, she would always be there, not letting me give up. She always made sure I had a place to stay. I got access to my doctors. I got transportation to my doctors, and like I got my medical care and everything. And she always looked out for me, so I'm always grateful to her. And that was one thing I had in my corner. A lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't have someone that won't let them give up.
Yeah.
But so my friends, I always guarantee them, you go through a hard time, you give me a call. I'll make sure you don't give up, or I'll carry you for a while until you can crawl and then you can walk.
So as we start to wrap it up, I want to touch on loneliness real quick, because I know we've talked about depression and anxiety, and a lot of these things are usually linked together in some way. But
Yeah.
loneliness, what's interesting about loneliness is, and I've experienced this too, is you can be in a crowded room around people all the time and still feel incredibly lonely. And I believe
Yeah.
that after COVID, this has increased greatly. And it probably worldwide, but certainly in the United States. So, like, what are some ways to sort of combat that? Like, how do we work against that feeling of loneliness that it can actually make the depression worse, I think?
Yeah, it's tough. And a lot of people don't have depression. They're just lonely. And so we resolve the loneliness, and then kind of the depression, a lot of the anxiety can get resolved. But that's not for everyone. Like I say, I'm not a medical doctor. I don't treat any medical conditions. What I do, I just teach life skills and help people to make friends and be less lonely. But so I had a lonely feeling all my life. It went away, but after my mom died, kind of came back, everything. So I'm kind of dealing with that now too. Then went through a breakup 8 months ago. Kind of found my person unexpectedly, and then went through a breakup 8 months ago, which was devastating to me. But now I'm kind of dealing with that loneliness again. But yeah, I can relate with the phrase feeling alone in a crowded room because you don't have those personal connections. And one of the things is we have so many online connections. We're so connected to so many people online, have so many online friends, but people neglect, especially young guys, are neglecting the need for in-person friends, that in-person fellowship. Because when my mom died, I was so fortunate to have made the friends that I made. I put a bunch of people into a chat, and I did not have to spend any time alone in my house for like 6 weeks after she died. People came over on the weekends, people came over at night, people came over during the day. And I'm so fortunate, so grateful to those people, and I can never probably pay those people back for their kindness. And so that's why if they go through a hard time, I pledge to help them. But yeah, loneliness is just such a big crisis because people aren't taught how to get along and make friends. And one thing I think even especially with the younger generation, what I hear from professors and things like that, younger generation may kind of view people as disposable. It's like they think you're with your friends or your partner or someone you're dating that you have to get along on 100% of the time and agree on 100% of the stuff. And the moment you have a little disagreement, you just cut that person off. And there's one thing for blocking off like an unhealthy person with a pattern of behavior. But there's another thing if you just have a small disagreement with a friend and you're not willing to communicate and work through it. We don't learn those communication skills anymore. And so you have to learn how to resolve conflicts with your friends. And unless they have a pattern of behavior of being mean, a lot of people are cutting people off from their lives that really care about them. But they can't communicate that with each other, and they're not getting taught the communication skills.
Yeah,
So we got to communicate with people. We got to connect with people on a deeper level.
that's right. In conflict, conflict management, conflict resolution skills is what's lacking a lot. We
Yeah,
were taught that, or we were shown, growing up the wrong ways to do it,
yeah,
or maybe just no way. It was just constant chaos or destructive patterns, right? And so we tend to emulate, or we look at that and we go, oh, I don't ever want to be part of that. So we run the other way and we avoid conflict altogether. Right. And so you have a bunch of people swimming in a I don't know how to do this conflict thing kind of world. And this is what we get, right? We get
yeah.
people that aren't able.
So we get it. We get a whole generations of lonely people.
Yeah. And I think the term for that is ghosting, right? So we now
Yeah,
ghost people. Right?
yeah. You don't even you just cut them off and don't talk to them. And
So
it's tough for just Black people because you have one small conflict with them.
yeah. So speaking of Gen Z, right? So Gen Z, I heard a stat recently that there's one thing that basically drives their happiness, like one thing that they focus on most, I should say. And that one thing is a sense of purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
And so, like, like you talk about it too, David. Like, what do you think that does for the quality of our lives? And is it just Gen Z, or is it all of us that should be focusing on?
Well, it's everybody because what gives a person true confidence is knowing your purpose and your mission in life. Like one thing I say is every man needs a mission. Well, kind of I think every woman does too, but the man needs a mission. That kind of is that alliteration. So one of the things I teach people is how to identify your current mission and purpose in life. Because if you've ever read the book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning,
I have.
one thing he talks about how having a meaningful life is so important, having that purpose. It's an essential survival tool. But the thing is, it's not always fixed in life. It can change as life goes on. There's not always one fixed purpose, and purpose can be different for every person. Like you hear the people ask, when I was a kid, I always ask a question like, what's the meaning of life? Well, it's different for it can be different for every human being. You have to give your life meaning. There's no one set meaning. So you discover that by identifying what you really value in life or what you want to value in life and taking small steps toward those values. And I teach people how to do that. But I mean, my purpose, once I found my purpose, it gave me confidence, has kept me alive. I can walk basically anywhere and not be scared because I'm focused on the future, on those goals. I know I need to be around to somehow achieve that goal of helping 1 million people, and maybe more once we get that up. But interesting thing, you set big goals, you attract other people with big goals, and then you can all work together. So that's how I think you make it happen. But yeah, so the sense of purpose is essential because of what will keep you alive. Because I've had endless days of depression where my brain will tell me that, and it hasn't been that way for a long time. My brain will tell me, oh, you don't need to be around anymore. Every fiber in my being is telling me I don't need to be around anymore. But I have this mission, that sense of purpose. No, I have to be around for the people that love me. I have to be around to complete my mission. And that's what keeps me alive.
Awesome. So what is it that you ultimately want all the listeners to hear? Like, what's your main hope that for the listener?
Well, couple main things. No matter what happens in life, life's not over. We can always pivot and find a new purpose. It doesn't matter if you're having endless days of pain. And sometimes when you're having endless days of pain, when you're having endless days of depression, you kind of need those people to care about you to help you get through, which is why it's so important to make friends, and friendship's just a skill. Because when you're going through those endless days of suffering, or what seems like endless, sometimes I've always been a big fan of strategy in the book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And sometimes strategy will dictate just to hold the line until reinforcements arrive. And for me, those reinforcements came with new medical treatments that helped put both of my neck pain, my migraines, that gave me a lot of less migraine days, put my neck pain to remission, put that depression into remission. So there's always hope for the future. You can't give up hope. And good friends will help carry you during those tough times. And that's why it's so essential to learn to make friends. And so the key thing is it's all a skill that you can learn. And I'll give you one hint. So nobody cares what you know until they know what you care. So you essentially have to become a person that cares about others. And when you care about others, it's so much easier to connect with people and make friends.
Yeah.
But it's so easy. Society, especially when you get rejected all your life, it's so easy to turn to things like hating other people and hating people that are different from you and blaming other people for your life situation. It's so easy to do that. And it's so hard to choose a path where you care about people and want to look out for others. But you can reprogram your brain and you can do it. These are all skills that anybody can learn.
Absolutely. Right. It's a process, and it's a bit of a long game too, though, right? Which I know that's something that can seem daunting, but it's worth it. Like David,
it's not an instant process.
Yeah, you're living proof that it's worth it. Right?
And I tell guys, you got to think of it like a video game. Any video game you played, every time you do stuff, you get a little bit better. You gain some experience points, and pretty soon those experience points gain up, and you level up to a new level. It's the same thing. Every time you get around people, it becomes easier. Every time you have a small conversation with someone, that's gaining those experience points to get to the next level. And pretty soon those add up. And a few months from now, you'll be doing a little bit better. A year from now, you may have a whole different life. 5 years from now, you have the life that you never thought you could live like I do.
That's right. It's exponential. So if you could go back and do it all over again, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Well, what I would have gave my 20-year-old self, he wouldn't have took it, or he wouldn't have believed it, but I would have told him, actually, you're a people person, and you need to develop those skills. And instead of just studying IT stuff and software development, I should have took like more sales and marketing classes and business classes and things like that. That would have been more helpful. And because I had a very wealthy friend, my second client, I always talk about him, guy like the father I never had. When I was 17, he said, Dave, you want to make a lot of money. He's a very successful businessman. He said, you got to know two things. Two things are essential in business: your marketing and your accounting. You got to know how to sell your product or service, and you got to know how to keep track. And accounting was easy for me, just involved some simple math, and those systems made sense to me. But like marketing and sales and things that involve people, and I'm like, whoa, people do not make sense to me at all.
But you learned.
But that's why they're so fascinating now, because
Yeah.
every person is like his own system.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. One final question before we close. How can people reach you?
Well, so you can reach me in a couple ways. My main website, davidgood.org, is some ways to contact me. Also, you go to my website, The Friend Magnet, learn about my 6-week program that I can take people through. You can find our website, International Friend Connection, see a lot of our TV interviews and podcasts. If you want to come to some of our weekly meetings in person in Michigan, or virtual meetings anywhere in the world, you can go to internationalfriendconnection.com and get a link to some of the groups. And we have 47 groups on Meetup. I'm going to be rearranging some groups, closing some, opening others. But yeah, feel free to find me via any of our websites. Or I'm on LinkedIn also. You look up David Good. LinkedIn's always a way to get a hold of me.
Excellent. And I will make sure that all these links are in the description of the podcast episode. So if you click on that description, those of you listening, you can get access to all these things that David was talking about. And also a shameless plug on The Go-Giver. I've read that book twice. It is absolutely a life-changing book. It's one of those books, I feel like there's a list that I have in my head of books that every person should read, no matter who you are. That definitely goes in that list.
I'll tell you the book in the series that was a catalyst to me doing everything that I do now was The Go-Giver Influencer. And Bob wrote it with John David Mann because he saw things were so divided in the country. And it's a book about how to come together and understand people that are different from you. And it's about the secrets of having influence over other people, but it's more about how to care about other people and work together with other people to understand people and find solutions that help everybody to win, rather than this win-lose mentality that most people walk around with.
Yeah, it's very competitive, right? Well, David, it's been a pleasure. Really appreciate it. All the things that you shared, all the wisdom, the inspiration. I truly believe that those hearing this are going to experience at least a hint of encouragement that makes them want to make a change or take action. And if you are listening to this, just listening to the stories that David's told, allow yourself to take that courage and step into action and watch your life begin to exponentially change.
Yeah.
I can relate to a lot of what David is speaking about because some of those steps I took myself, and I saw the difference that it made in my life and the lives of others around me. And I find that when I'm sitting in that place of isolation, right, I find myself just kind of blocking all that out. I'm not in an attitude of service. Things aren't happening. No action is occurring. I'm just kind of sinking into this pit, this dark pit, and it grows in my mind. But when I step out of that and I begin to serve others, take actions that connect me with others, not just that things start to happen, even internally, the depression begins to fall away. I begin to experience joy again in my life. And that has like this almost domino effect that as you get more joy, you start taking more actions that create more joy, and it just keeps compounding. So highly encourage anyone listening, reach out to David, go through his program. And really overcome that social anxiety. David has accomplished it, right? And so he can help. Thank you.
And two key things. So you got to take action. You got to reach out for help.
Yeah.
And if you can do both of those things, you can make yourself pretty much unstoppable.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, David. And thank you all for listening. As I always say, remember to lead well, live on purpose, and honor God with your life. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thank you once again for listening and supporting the No Purpose Without Love podcast. If you like what you've been hearing, please remember to follow this podcast to continue receiving notifications about new upcoming episodes. For more information about how to start your own purpose-filled journey or to get in touch with me, you can start my online course by going to courses.beaconleaders.com, or you can email me at info@beaconleaders.com. You can also visit my website at www.davideguerreso.com. I will post these links and others in the description section of each episode as well. So until next time, remember to lead well, live on purpose, and honor God with your life.